Good afternoon. Jambo. Buenos dias. Bonjour. Welcome. So my name is Anne van Grinsven. I'm the head of Department of Water and Climate of the Vrije Universiteit Brussel, VUB. This is where you are. This is our campus. This is our nice cinema, I would call it. I'm very happy to welcome you all. I'm honored to get this opportunity because I think this is a very unique event. It's unique for so many matters and so many layers. To start, as you can see, it's all about Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is the biggest lake in Africa. There can only be one, the biggest in Africa, so I think that makes it already very special. It's shared and sharing natural resources with so many countries. Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo. So that makes it also very important for all these different countries. They have to share the resources, the water, and they have to share it for multiple purposes, for food, fishing, agriculture, for energy, for environment, and this all has to be supplied by the water. So that's what we call the Wi-Fi nexus. And that happens to be the topic of the PhD of Annika Schlem, who's behind this all event. She picked up this topic with all the dimensions in it, in a complex basin. But she went through it through a lot of different angles. I think it's very impressive. And she entered this topic focusing on nature-based solution and valuing of nature. So today, this is a core. We will look at nature for people, for the environment, and for all the other services that come from nature. And she looked at it from a biological point of view. She's a biologist as a training, but also from a hydrological point of view, from human aspects, social aspects. We will have talks also covering gender issues. We will look at youth. There is citizen science, but I think it's maybe better called youth science, how young children are learning and applying techniques for water quality. This is also on the program. She also added another dimension, which I think is also very unique, and in my opinion, the first time in our department, she added art. And this is also a reason why we have such a nice event in such a also nice setting. You don't talk about art in the basement of our building T, for people who know that place. Art, and also art, how it's perceived and used to also communicate on nature and nature-based solutions with children, with the youth, with the community. Yes, so she will also show how that experience has been going. And then we will also see, all of us, with our own eyes, what is coming out of this. Because after this symposium, there will be the opening of an exhibition, which again is very unique. This is the first time that our department is opening an exhibition in Pilar. I think many colleagues know Pilar from the bar. So we have been, we know Pilar. But it's the first time that we're using other facilities of Pilar, such as the cinema and the exhibition room, to show art. And there's some more art on the program. There is some music, but I don't want to spoil everything. You will hear it later. So, and I also am very happy to see a super diverse audience. Luckily, we have good representation of colleagues from the Lake Victoria Basin, from Kenya, in first place, Uganda, Tanzania, maybe some others. But we also have a large number of other countries. I'm not going to name all of them because I was not giving so much time. So we will skip that. But also the disciplines sitting here is amazing. We have biologists, hydrologists, we have agroeconomy, agricultural sciences, we have IT, we have law, we have social sciences, we have communication sciences, we have artists, among everything that I forgot to list. So I think that's also very unique. And everybody will look at this Lake Victoria probably from his own discipline, but probably also get very interested in linking to all the other disciplines that are on show today. All right, I think I will just want to close saying that this is, of course, thanks to Annika's effort and the PhD that was funded by the Marie Curie Fellowship, EU funding, but also it would not have been possible with the support of VLIR, and we're also happy to have VLIR representative here. But it's of course also a partnership of multiple universities, not to forget Joost and VUB, but also other institutes involved. Many other partners also, stakeholders that will also be voiced during the following program. So that makes it, I think, also very nice. I'm very proud that we are making these partnerships and that we are here together as partners, but also as friends. So welcome to everybody. So I now, before giving the micro to the chair of the program, Vincent, I will just also thank Elga and Zainab for the support of this event. It is a lot of work, and it only could be so smoothly without having multiple hands helping. But definitely Elga and Zainab have been playing a very important role, so thanks to Elga and Zainab. And then I'm looking to Vincent to pass over the microphone.
Yeah, so thank you. My name is Vincent Ugembo. I am a postdoc here and working on hydroclimatic modeling of the same lake, Lake Victoria. And in my village where I was born and I grew up, our home is just next to the lake. So my entire life, I could wake up, go farm. When I get back home and tired, by 2 p.m., we go to the lake. We tell our parents we are going to take a shower, but we were, of course, going to swim. So I have enjoyed this water all through, though it didn't affect my health. It is a nice water. And therefore, today we want to let you that we have a pool of speakers who are really going to give insights from diverse areas, as Professor Anna said. And just to let you know that we have Douglas Nnalubaale. We are going to give you more about them when their time comes, just to let you know. We'll also have Stella Wanjala, Julius Manyala, we'll have John Nyongesa, we'll have Emily Achieng, and finally, Camille Wekesa. These are the speakers who are going to give us more insights about this. But with this, it is said that Lake Victoria has really touched lives. It has touched lives of communities living around this lake. Going through fishing, farming, it has touched issues about ancient transport routes that is connecting different countries that border this lake and its basin. And over the years, economically, it has contributed to the growth of people who live within this basin. It is a precious gift in the eastern side of Africa. But one thing that touches our heart, that every precious thing is also fragile. This lake is fragile. This lake is crying from shocks of climate change. It is crying from pollution from around the towns, the villages, from agriculture, fertilizers, chemicals, wastes being thrown into it, be it liquid or solid waste. This lake is crying. This lake requires a collaboration so that we protect this lake. This lake requires a united efforts so that we would conserve even its catchment. This lake, Victoria, of course being shared by these many countries, needs a united efforts across all these countries, even across many other continents in the world. And that is why we are here. It is the source of White Nile, the world's longest river. I will tell you that today, in this symposium, we are going to look at the socio-ecological challenges that are around this lake, the community-driven solutions that may impact this lake. And of course, that would include nature-based solutions, citizen science. Funnily enough, you were told we'll also have art today about Lake Victoria. And we are going to see how music would bring back the life of Lake Victoria. I see everyone is smiling, and you people love music, I can see. We'll also have visual arts, as you have just been informed. And this will run up to around 4:30. We'll not take much time here, and therefore let's be strong enough. That will end with a documentary premiering about interwoven waters. The word interwoven is from the word weaving, bringing together. That's why music is here. That's why we have lawyers here. That's why we have water resource experts here. We have climate scientists. We have all disciplines here. Therefore, after all this, of course, we'll go for the video for just about 30 minutes, and thereafter, we go for the exhibition. But just to let you know that there is tea and coffee. I learned this is the culture in Belgium. And food. So let's warm up. The room is also in good temperatures. Otherwise, okay, there is food. Otherwise, I want to now welcome our first speaker, who is called Dr. Douglas Nnalubaale. Dr. Douglas is a science lead at the Nature for Water facility at the conservation NGO, that is the Nature Conservancy. And he holds a PhD in hydrology. To spice it up, he got his PhD from here. Also from Professor Anne. Dr. Douglas specializes in conservation, nature-based solutions, hydrology, and also is so instrumental in stakeholders' engagement. He leads work on watershed investment programs, and that is, of course, for the basin. That's why he has traveled over here on the same and of other catchments within Africa. And he focuses on integrated land and water management and conservation to address water security and environmental pressures and community well-being. So coming on stage is Dr. Douglas. Please, let's welcome him. He's both home in Belgium and also home in Kenya. You're welcome.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I thought I was going to introduce myself, but I've been introduced well enough. And maybe to add on to that is that I'm also from the Lake Victoria Basin, not on the shores of the Lake Victoria, but on the water sources, in other words, the water towers of the Lake Victoria, specifically the Sondu catchment. For those of you that are familiar, that's where I come from. And yeah, so I'm happy to present about on what we are doing, the challenges of the Lake Victoria. And like as had been indicated, I work with the Nature for Water facility. And yeah, so what we'll be doing is talking about the Lake Victoria Basin, trying to understand it. What are the threats? Many of you are familiar with that. For some of you, it's going to be the first time, but definitely you will definitely resonate with that. And we are talking about conservation. Like as has been indicated, the lake is crying, and we feel as a conservation organization that nature-based solution is a way to wipe those tears. And definitely I'll present about what we are doing, that is using the watershed investment program and how we are framing it in the form of a business case, because you need to talk to stakeholders, you need to talk to funders, present a business case for them to understand why they need to invest. And I'll present the Yala case, a business case that we have for the Yala, and then we'll have a session at the end for questions. Yeah, so for some of you that are not familiar, the Lake Victoria Basin is about 195,000 square kilometers. The lake itself is twice the size of Belgium, right? So look at Belgium being like this size, but then now it's twice that size, so covering about 68,000 square kilometers. It is the largest basin, of course, as indicated, in Africa, and the second largest freshwater body in the world. And it supports over 40 million people, so people within all these areas are more than 40 million. And it has numerous indigenous forests and critical wetlands. There are many critical that are part of the Ramsar site that have been mapped in this area. And more than 90% of this catchment is definitely through smallholder farms. We have a few large-scale farms, but more than 90% is this. And it provides a key ecosystem for ecosystem services, regulating services, and sustaining biodiversity. And so the threats within this lake are massive. We are looking at water quality in the basin, which is deteriorating because of the land use practices taking place. That is seen a lot through sediment, a lot of sediment generation and transport, which end up within the lake. We are also looking at poor land use practices, which is a driver of these sediment loads. That is the amount of sediments getting into the lake, into the rivers and lake. We are looking at poor land use practices resulting from loss of vegetation cover. People are clearing because they want to expand agriculture. And that is really contributing to a lot of that. And that has seen the turbidity levels within these river systems draining into the lake go up. In some cases, it even really goes up, especially during the rainy season. Treatment plants that abstract from these rivers are forced to shut down and wait until the sediment loads goes down, then they can continue abstracting. And so this, what you see here is definitely those challenges from illegal mining, poor agricultural practices, riverine vegetation loss, forest degradation, wetland and conversion, and many more. And so this is a photo that now presents us. We have invasive species. I'm told this eucalyptus is not a native species in Africa, but it came, and that is a big contributor of loss in terms of consumption. We are seeing people cultivating up to the river banks, and that is contributing to high sediments. We are looking at also illegal artisanal mining. In other words, most of the people that will aim to get some gold go to the rivers, go to wetlands, and that's causing some degradation. And so the resulting impact is, of course, upstream farmers definitely trying to improve on productivity, and in that contributing to a lot of the degradation. And that in itself is contributing to a lot of consequences downstream. We're looking at companies that abstract from these rivers having to incur a lot of cost. Having to incur a lot of cost for treatment. We're looking at increased maintenance and for the systems, infrastructure for water treatment. And we're looking at a loss in processed water also, because you have to use clean water to flush the systems. And so this is a great water security challenge through water quality, water quantity. And we feel that nature-based solution is a way, part of a way of definitely addressing this issue. So we are looking at a scenario whereby there is a problem in terms of accessible water quantity and quality. And we want to leverage on nature. In other words, when we talk about nature-based solutions, we're talking about using nature to solve nature's problems, as opposed to using grey infrastructure. So we want to leverage on nature and the power of healthy ecosystems to protect people, protect nature, and be able to safeguard our environment. And the benefits, of course, from nature-based solutions are massive. They are multiple. We are looking at water security. We are looking at livelihoods. We are looking at ecosystem restoration, carbon benefits, and these ones are useful to be able to take care of nature, people, and community, and the communities that we work with. And as a Nature for Water facility, specifically as a Nature Conservancy, we've recently come up with an approach where we try to bring in a connection between downstream and upstream communities. We know that downstream we have big companies that rely on the catchment for its water, and these communities or these organizations want to be part of the conversation, because it's getting to a point where these companies, talk of the breweries, talk of Coca-Cola companies that rely on water from these systems, wanting to continue getting water in the right quality and in the right quantity. And they are being informed that right now, to be able to get the right quality and the right quantity, you need to pay more. But then they need to participate in this conversation so that it doesn't look like it's the role of the authority to manage water and them to pay. Can they be able to be part of this conversation so that they can take care of their needs going into the future? And that's how we came up with this model where we, the communities downstream, the cities, the big companies, provide incentives to communities living upstream, and the communities upstream are able to participate in conservation to ensure that there's water security for the cities. So here in the watershed investment program approach that we are embracing, we are trying to promote a collective action initiative, bringing everyone to the table to discuss and to be able to define the roles that everyone can play and be part of this conversation, leading to a catchment or a basin that is definitely water secure. So we work towards addressing water security as a starting point, but definitely we use nature-based solutions to deliver multiple benefits. So we usually use the term core benefits, multiple benefits, stacked benefits, to mean that we are addressing one element, water security, but generating benefits to the environment, to communities, and to climate resilience. And so to be able to do that, definitely we follow a step approach. We start with, first of all, a pre-feasibility phase, and we don't look at the entire basin. We try to work with small catchments or manageable catchments so that we can be able to get local solutions, systems that are able to work to solve the problem. So we start by definitely looking at a pre-feasibility phase, and here we try to explore at a high level if nature-based solution can solve the problem. In many cases, sometimes we find catchments that already can confirm that indeed it can solve the problem. So what we do is then we move to a feasibility phase. I mentioned that we'll be talking about the Yala catchment, and Stella will be coming after me, and then we'll discuss more about the support that we've provided to the Yala. And so we can do a feasibility study to determine whether a specific viable pathway, in other words, what nature-based solutions, where, and what are the benefits that we can get out of this. And that's what we do. And once we've been able to answer that question, we then go to the design to pull together the proposed actions plan, because by then we are moving closer to actual implementation of nature-based solutions. And then, of course, at the end, we then implement nature-based solutions. So we try to follow these steps. And I've highlighted, of course, this one because this is where the rubber meets the road in terms of then defining the pathway towards implementing nature-based solutions. And so that is all in a nutshell on what we do, as of course, towards working towards helping, wiping the tears within the Yala. And so I'll quickly present on the Yala, where we have, it's the first one within the Lake Victoria Basin that we've supported with a watershed investment program. And so for those of you that are familiar with the Yala, this is the Yala. In terms of its position, it's here, and it drains and pours its water at this particular point. And the challenges within the Yala that we were able to identify were, of course, loss of riverine vegetation, as you saw in that photo, poor farming practices, wetland conversion into agricultural land. The Yala has lost a lot of wetlands, forest degradation, and illegal mining and stormwater controls that are needed. And so we did a step-by-step approach by definitely looking at where is degradation happening within the Yala. We then identified which nature-based solutions will support or address these issues. What would be the delivery model to be able to deliver these nature-based solutions? What are the costs? In other words, we did a cost-benefit analysis. What is the costs of these nature-based solutions and what is the implementation scenario? We then quantified and valued the benefits. We built a discounted timeline. In other words, we're looking at the cost of implementation now is not the cost 10 years or 20 years or 30 years from now. So we factor that in because we are looking at long-term restoration. And at the end, we then definitely evaluated the benefits coming out from this. And so we followed a community-based approach. Stella will be speaking about this more in her next presentation, where we are looking at working with communities that relies on mobilization and outreach partnerships and technical assistance or support that we provide, trainings and capacity building, and definitely yielding the benefits. That's a cycle that we follow. And we narrowed down to, and for this study, we narrowed down to 4 main nature-based solutions that we feel can address the issue in this catchment. We are looking at agricultural best management practices. We were able to talk about agroforestry, cover crops, terraces, ditches, riparian buffers. We looked at forest rehabilitation. The catchment has very critical forests within this catchment. We are looking at wetland restoration. Like I had indicated, the catchment has lost a lot of its wetlands, which are very critical. And we are also looking at the roads. The catchment has a dense network of gravel roads, and those ones deliver their sediments into the river system. So we're looking at what can we do to minimize that. And when it comes to definitely looking at a business case, because we need to talk to these big companies to know that their contribution right now is definitely going to safeguard their operations in future. We looked at, in this waterfall presentation, so this red line is of course a 0 mark. And at the beginning, you want to invest in nature-based solutions, AgBMPs. That's why you're seeing this is going to the negative. It's digging into your pocket. But after investing all this amount of money, then the benefits start coming. And you see how the benefits go above the 0 line. And at the end, you have these net benefits. So you see we were able to then show that by investing in $1 right now can secure or generate up to $3 of benefits. This is what we're referring to as a business case. And so definitely the next steps right now, we are preparing, getting funding to do the design phase, and then definitely we'll work towards implementation and operations, coming up with systems to ensure that this is long-term. So as a watershed investment program, our goal is to generate long-term conservation goals. Most times projects come and after about 3, 4, 5 years, it comes to an end, but we are creating a system that is going to ensure that there is long-term benefits, long-term investment in conservation. So it's a journey that we don't want to end. We want it to continue. And yeah, that marks the end of this presentation.
Yes, let's give him a round of clap. Thank you. So if you have a question, we have some 3 minutes. I give you the microphone. Whoever has a question or a comment. Good.
Just to clear up, I just wanted to know the illegal mining, is it by...
As a university, we've been given the western part of River Yala to do exactly what you are projecting today. So I think this is timely for us, and I think we're going to have discussions on how we can make Yala live or alive. And some of the things that you've actually presented today are quite close to our hearts, and we're going to work with you to do that.
Certainly, certainly.
Thank you so much for the presentation. My question is, okay, nature-based solutions are a great initiative, but looking at lake like Victoria, which has a wide catchment, do you have any provisions in your project to influence maybe policy or other countries which are in the catchment to do something similar? Because if you do one thing on one river, on a lake which has many rivers coming in, it may not really have a big impact. How are you addressing that?
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, for the success, of course, first of all, for the success of this watershed investment program to work, we may need to go bit by bit. And definitely that's why we decided to, I wouldn't say we decided to work in the Yala, but then as the Nature Water Facility, we have funding. We got funding when we created the Nature Water Facility. We got funding to the tune of $6 million to support communities, our catchments. So what we have every year is a call for proposals for catchments that are experiencing water security challenges and need support. And through Dr. Stella, who's here with us, she made an application to the facility, and it was a very compelling case, and we went ahead to support. So we always have calls for proposals. Recently, we actually also had a recent call for proposals, and we've got one from Uganda, Ruizi catchment. We haven't selected it yet, but then it's still going through the process. But so that's how we really want, because we are global, so we can't really go to a specific place, but then we want the people that feel the problem in their regions to come to us and make an application and say, this is a catchment that is suffering degradation. Can you support us? And that's how we go and offer the technical assistance. So hopefully, if there are what we call them local leads or champions within the Lake Victoria, then they can definitely make applications and we can offer that support.
Yes, there's final question here.
Thank you very much, Douglas. I'm Pamela Were from Jost, Kenya. First, thank you so much for that enlightening presentation or insightful presentation. Now, you talked of WIP, that is Water Investment Concept. Watershed Investment Concept. I'm wondering what's the difference between this and PES, or it's just the same concept, but now you are using it differently? Secondly, when we look at the drivers that you enlisted, they are majorly anthropogenic activities. As you design your programs, do you look into how do you address the major cause of these unsustainable human practices so that you incorporate them, particularly in the nature-based solutions that you're using? For example, culture, high levels of population, and so on. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, for the first question, a WIP, the reason why we call it a watershed investment program, if I may touch on the second letter, I, it's because it's not just a study that looks at what the problem is and what's the solution. Rather, we are also extending the study to something called what I refer to as a business case. When you know what the problem is and what the solution is through nature-based solution, how much does that cost? And what are the benefits coming out of that? And then we monetize the benefits. And that business case is what we are able to present to companies who traditionally were of the view that we are not involved in that as we are paying taxes. But it has gotten to a point whereby everyone needs to be part of the conversation. We have done in Kenya also in what is called the Upper Tana catchment that delivers water to Nairobi. We did a business case. We presented to big companies like the breweries, the Coca-Cola, and the banks, and they contributed money. So we call it an investment program because we not only look at just the scientific or social problems, but then we present a case for someone that will compel them to invest and be part of this. That's why it's called a watershed, different from you're talking about payment for ecosystem services. Yeah, so it has that investment or convincing power for potential investors, companies. And in terms of, you've indicated that these are anthropogenic issues, indeed. And the first solution towards addressing this would be looking at the people. What do the people want? That's why, besides nature-based solutions, we have something called nature-based enterprises, NBE. So for these communities to be able to be part of these nature-based solutions, what can we do that ensures that they are able to be happy? Because if you go to a community that is looking at getting food or getting medical services, and you expect them to implement nature-based solutions, and that's a dead-on-arrival plan. So it's important that we look at what is the key thing that matters to this community.
Thank you so much. Let's appreciate Douglas for that wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for your time. Now, in that connection and for consistency, we want to welcome Dr. Stella Wanjala. Dr. Stella is the co-founder of Women in Water and Natural Resources Conservation, and she holds a PhD in ecology at Moi University, that is in Kenya, and also works at MUST, we call it MUST, Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology in Kenya, in environmental conservation, and is an expert in nature-based solution as well, and community resilience and participatory environmental governance. So Stella leads initiatives integrating women's empowerment with ecosystem restoration in Kenya. So at this point, I want to welcome her to come up front and give her presentation. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am glad to be here and to make this presentation. And maybe just to add on what has been given there, my presentation will actually give a gender eye of what Douglas has talked about. There are many things Douglas has taken us through, but if all this is not viewed in a gender lens, then there is actually some form of counterproductive. So my presentation will just bring in how women and other vulnerable groups can come in to be a solution to what Douglas has just talked about. And I want to say that my organization also leads the first women-led water fund in the whole world. That's why gender is key here. I thought you would even clap for me. How can I be leading the first women-led water fund in the whole world? The whole world, I think, has about 16 water funds. Douglas, if I'm not very, yeah. And in Kenya, we have 4 now. And the only women-led one is Yala River Water Fund, and that's what I'll be talking about. So this is the topic I chose to discuss today, a gender-responsive nexus between ecosystem restoration and community livelihood. Now, I want us to look at this with an eye on Lake Victoria Basin, but specifically the Yala River Basin. And there are 2 issues here that I'm going to make mention: ecosystem restoration and improvement of livelihoods. And these 2 are competing. In the upper shade of the river, that's the source of the river, one of them is very common. Everyone wants to be there and to be able to lead activities, climate activities that will improve ecosystem restoration. So you find a lot of planting of trees, vetiver and other forms of grasses up there to make sure the source is doing well. Now, if this is not looked at with a gender eye and probably involvement or inclusion of women in it, you find that most of the work at the end of it may not really be sustainable, because you can come and put up as many activities, climate activities that you want in the upper shade, but if the community is not benefiting from what you're doing, that means if you're not also thinking of enterprises that are going to improve the livelihood of the people around about the sources, then that is going to be counterproductive. At the lower, that's the downstream of the river Yala catchment, there is a lot of livelihood improvement. So many people are coming up with rice farming. Those of you who have come from the Yala area, you know about the Dominion Farm, and now we have a lot of sugarcane that is being grown in the same area. And in that case, then you forget about ecosystem restoration because you find the wetlands are being converted into agricultural land. So my aim today is just to make sure that we have a balance between ecosystem restoration and improvement of livelihoods for the people that we are actually taking care of. Important to say, and maybe you'll find this not very far off from what Douglas has been discussing, is that the Yala Basin in Kenya is actually threatened, and that is why Douglas was here and talking about it. But it's important to say that if we were able to include women in the whole area of conservation of the basin as such, then this will bring a solution to what we are talking about. Because if gender comes in, then we'll make sure that at the upstream, apart from just, you know, most of the conservation activities, tree planting, vetiver, terracing, most of the people, the men, let me say, and sorry about that, they don't find that so important because it doesn't bring a lot of money on the table. So you find it's the women who do a lot of that work. At the downstream, where you have a lot of rice growing and you have sugarcane growing, that brings a lot of money. So you find most men will be interested in that. So what I'm just saying is that, is it possible for us to include more men on the upstream so that they work with the women to be able to restore? And is it possible for us to include women downstream so that they also benefit from the money that comes out of the enterprise activities that we are carrying out? So gender responsiveness is important because, of course, women interact with nature, nature-based solutions. Like, actually, we interact with nature like every day. So anything that is being carried out about conservation of nature will be taken very seriously by women than probably by men, because we know when there's no water, it is us. If there are no firewood, especially those of us who come from Africa, it's us who will go looking for the firewood. We are the ones to look for water. We are the ones to take care of children if they are ill because of maybe water that is not fit for them to use. So involving women becomes very, very key. And that is actually my call, that if we were able to involve women, then our journey to resilience will be much easier than what we are doing now. The role of women, and that this is actually what I'm talking about, that women are the primary caregivers to any source of, any form of natural resources. They are also key because they hold deep traditional ecological knowledge. If there's any transfer of traditional knowledge from one generation to another, and our call and our desire of all of us is that the kind of conservation that we are carrying out should be generational. It should be passed on from us to our children and to the next generations. And that can only be achieved if we look at it with a gender eye. And we're also saying women's involvement is key because of biodiversity. We are the ones who make use of most of the plants and animals that are found around, especially the wetland, the grasses, and all the other animals that are there. In the River Yala Basin, we have two important animals that we are looking at, the Sitatunga antelope and also the crested crane. And the women are really on this, that we may be able to restore the habitats, that we may be able to salvage biodiversity. Then even if this is our cry, you find that in most cases, when you go to the panels that make decisions, you always find women are missing. And that's why my cry today is that we would also be part of that panel that is going to make decisions in as far as conservation is concerned. I will give my brief presentation. Of course, there are things that I've talked about that are general, but as we continue, I'm going to focus on a case study that I have worked on together with my organization, and just to appreciate how much women can be able to bring on the table. So the opportunities that we have in, if we want to focus on gender responsive restoration, include the following. Number one, we should have inclusive planning. And this, of course, will ensure that all groups, even the less fortunate ones, those that are marginalized, that the women and even the youth will be involved in planning. And empowering of women, of course, will be very important because this plays an important role. I can't say it's the only one, but I'm just saying it will play an important role in increasing the rate at which achievements will be seen. And why? Because the women are the ones who take care of families. So anything that touches on families, they'll be at it. They'll go at it very fast. They'll give it their all. And the successes that have been seen actually world over. In Kenya, we have a beautiful success story on the Green Belts movement that was first started by Professor Wangari Maathai, who is now late, and we really embrace it. And this is actually the reason and the core cause why women now woke up and realized we can do something. And I want to say that there are many organizations like Women in Water and Natural Resource Conservation that are out to make sure that the work that Wangari Maathai started does not die now, but that we carry on and move it on and pass it on to the next generations that are coming after us. Another beautiful success is in Nepal. And here I'm sure we all know about the restoration of forests based on the gender quotas. It has also worked so well and achieved the purposes. Then we have another beautiful one in Latin America on agroecology. And women have really embraced the whole, all the principles of agroecology, and it has worked well in ensuring that restoration has been achieved. Now, this is a case study of Yala Basin, the Yala River Basin, and what the women have been able to do under Women in Water and Natural Resource Conservation. We do a lot of forest restoration and empowering of women and communities to improve the two areas that I started talking about, that is ecosystem restoration and livelihood improvement. I still insist that the two must go hand in hand. If the balance tipples to the other side, then the other one will lose. And if you don't have a balance on these two, sustainability cannot be achieved. So this organization, Women in Water and Natural Resource Conservation, which was started in the year 2012 and has moved on. And in the last 2 years, these are some of the achievements that we have been able to do, that we have been able to restore 100 hectares of land in the upper section or the upper catchment of River Yala. Then we have 149 indigenous trees that have been planted, 150 community members trained in environmental sustainability. We also do community tree nurseries, and we have established one large one, and we have 300 households within the communities that live around the forest that have been trained and trained on eco-friendly activities that can give them some money, and they have also been given energy-saving cook stoves. Then in the midstream, now I am bringing this out for the three areas, the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream. Maybe just what we are seeing there is a terrace that is being constructed by women. So it's important to know, there are some things that men always did, and we believed that that's the work of men. But now we are changing the story, and women can be able to do terraces and stabilize them by planting trees and sometimes grasses. Anika is already showing me her card, but all these are just what we have been able to do. Hectares of land that have been restored, and then the communities that have been trained, and of course livelihoods have been improved, like I said, and maybe, let's say something about the downstream before I get out. So in the downstream, and this is now around Yala Swamp, and the areas within Siaya County, for those who come from Siaya, we work there, supported by GIZ, and we have been able to do this work, a bit of wetland restoration, then riverbank stabilization and rehabilitation. This one has been done so well using nature-based solutions. Citizen science has also, we have a number of groups that we have trained in citizen science, and now data can be collected from the community, sent to the local government. And our cry now on this citizen science issues that the local government, or probably those who can be able to sponsor, should be able to train the citizens so that they can be able to give data that can be validated. As we speak now, validation is an issue because each person uses their own method. So we are looking forward to get a standard method that will make this more acceptable. And then all that has also been done. In the interest of time, let me just look at the impacts. So all those has been done by the organization. And these are the challenges that we have made. Limited access to land, credit, and training. And this is especially for women, because women are not allowed to be part of decision making. They don't own land, and yet this is the land that we need to work on even during restoration. Then gender powers, we all know. Then environmental degradation is actually disproportionate. Women are more hurt by all that comes out of climate change impacts. And the social norms are not on our side, so we are just asking that with time, sensitization and awareness creation, we would get over this with time. Then those are success stories, women-led tree nurseries, community members leading in riparian restoration, bamboos have been planted, and adaptation to agroecological zones. Those are happy women because of the work that they have done. And these are gender lenses that we need to probably think of as we finish, that women are the custodians. And if we train them in self-help groups, they can be able to improve their income through conservation. Maybe we could just think of that. Even as we give them the stores and everything else, it's good to train them in eco-entrepreneurship so that they can be able to support themselves. And then maybe key principles that we'll need to think of as I finish: inclusion, including the women in participation in designing and even implementation of projects. Let's not just bring them in at the end, but let them be part of it. Then equal access to finances, gender-sensitive monitoring and evaluation, and then challenging discriminatory norms against the women. And then the calls that I have, and about 3 of them: integrate gender analysis into restoration projects, fund women-led conservation efforts. It will give you better results than ignoring them, and promoting policy reforms for gender equity in ecosystem governance. Yeah, that's the end. And those are the people, the partners that have supported our work since that 2012. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have some 2 minutes for 2 questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Stella. That was very good. Now, I have a concern. I know that you work mainly with the women, and that is a women organization. But when you talk about gender and looking at everything using the gender lens, then I would suggest that you also look at the comprehensive meaning of gender, so that you don't only work with women, but work with all the categories of groups of people. Because we have the youth, we have the boys and girls, we have the other vulnerables in the community. So how do we empower them so that they also participate? And therefore we'll talk of a comprehensive gender approach to all these things. And with that, I've seen that you've talked of integrating gender analysis into restoration projects. Do you work with schools also, or you only work with women groups? Because otherwise, where is the continuity? After tomorrow, how are we empowering the young ones also to take up restoration activities? Otherwise, well done for that wonderful job.
Thank you, Dr. Let me respond to that. Actually, in Africa, you cannot work with women without men, because the men are the owners of the land. So what I'm just insisting on is that men should allow women to fit into it. Because the way we do it, actually, you have to speak to the men first. You actually do sensitization to the men and let them understand why it's important for the women to get involved. Because it's only after that that they can allow the women to have pieces of land to work on. Because like if you're like giving them agroforestry trees, they need to plant on their farmsteads. But it's the men who own the land. So we don't leave out men. If there is anything we care about, is the men. Because if the man says no to the wife, they will not come to that meeting of yours. So what I'm just emphasizing is that I know already men are working on it. They are conserving. The youths are very active in that. But where are the women? So much as we work with the men and youth, let us also remember women. And then very importantly, we work with schools. And actually as an organization, we also empower other youthful organizations. Like we have one that is called Climate and Child. These are young people who are running with the climate ideas in schools, in colleges, so that then this becomes a generational work. When we are not here, the children will pick up.
Thank you. Okay, silence means that that is done. Thank you so much. Let's appreciate Dr. Stella for that wonderful presentation. And we appreciate involving men as well. We highly appreciate. Now, we are going to another level. Just remember, we looked at nature conservancy. Now we've brought women into this. And after that, we want to look at now ecological issues around Lake Victoria Basin. And this is going to be handled by none other than Professor Julius Manyala. Professor Julius Manyala is an associate professor of fisheries and aquaculture, of course, at JUST. He is also, of course, a PhD in fisheries and management, and then also a researcher who is focusing on biodiversity and sustainable management of freshwater ecosystems, particularly in Lake Victoria, and is the former director of the PI Institute and contributor to regional fisheries policy and research across Kenya, Malawi, and some other countries. I am also privileged that he was my PhD supervisor. So I'm his product. Yeah, you clap for me as you clap for him, yeah? Thank you so much, Prof. You are welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I would like to be very brief because I know time is running out. I want to say that Lake Victoria is a critical environment and has been used almost like a live laboratory to study many things and many ecological principles that cannot be explained by conventional methods. If you look at Lake Victoria, it's part of the Great Lakes region and is one of the largest lakes in the Great Lakes area. And it has many similarities with the other Great Lakes. And this makes it also a very interesting lake to study because of the biodiversity that we have in Lake Victoria as well as all the other lakes. And the part of the lake that we are going to deal with is the Yala Swamp, where we have two satellite lakes, Lake Kanyaboli and Lake Sare, which of course are considered to be like natural museums. We have many issues that have been mentioned here. The introduction of species is a big challenge in this lake, and there are many species that have been introduced. The most popular tilapia that we eat in that lake, actually, the Niloticus is introduced. But we have many other species that have been introduced that may have interfered with the ecosystem in addition to human interventions. The anthropogenic activities have been mentioned, and I don't want to belabor in repeating some of them. But one of the biggest challenges in this swamp has been the reclamation of the land for agriculture. And most of it was done for rice and many other produce. There are challenges of eutrophication, challenges of grazing, and so forth. And the impacts have been profound and very far-reaching in terms of livelihoods, in terms of sedimentation, poor water quality, and loss of ecological habitats. But we'll see how this can be addressed in the light of information and data that can be used to inform policy. Now, I want to start with the changes the impacts that have been realized in the lake. For some time, we had this issue of algal blooms because of nutrient influx into the lake from the catchment. We have the challenges of the water hyacinth, and it has very beautiful flowers, probably that encourage people to plant it. But you can see the impact that you have in the water hyacinth. The pier is almost completely blocked, and you cannot navigate in this area. Challenges with the system of harvesting the hyacinth, and you can see the damage it causes to the aesthetic value on the beaches. So this cannot be overlooked in terms of the biodiversity challenges. Now, why are we interested in the Yala Swamp? We are interested in Yala Swamp because it is a home to the sum of the endangered cichlid species. Cichlid species are the most diverse group of species in the African Great Lakes, ranging to about 500 to 600 species in total, greater than most of the species you can have in the whole of Europe. I think Europe may have almost a quarter of that in terms of diversity. It is also rich in birds. It is rich in macrophytes, mammals, and even amphibians and reptiles. There are a lot of human activities in that lake that are of concern, and there are also plant activities. Now, as you look at the lake, the biodiversity can be considered in terms of what we can locate as, I can say, in the Yala Swamp area. It is one of the most important bird watching areas, but it is not the only one, and this underscores the importance of this lake. We have other important bird watching areas scattered all over the lake, and you can see how they are distributed in terms of space in the region. And this gives you an idea on what kind of biodiversity we are talking about. We are only not talking about birds, but we are talking of mammals, reptiles, we are talking of fish species, and the rest. What have we done about this biodiversity? We have known that the activities in Yala Swamp is a contributor to the loss of biodiversity. The first phase of reclamation was 2,300 hectares, and there was a plan to further reclaim 4,600 hectares in that area. And if this is reclaimed, I think you know what might happen to the biodiversity in terms of abundance as well as the different types of species you can get. Now, this area that was initially reclaimed was a very small area. This is just graphical, but this is the area that would have been reclaimed if this program had succeeded. And if you look at the total area, you can see it is almost approaching half of the swamp. So this swamp probably would have disappeared in the near future if these activities could have been allowed. This instigated a group of experts from around the globe to look at how we can use the biodiversity to inform governments on what policies to make. And we had the similar projects in the mountain and forest regions in Ecuador. We were working in Kenya in the freshwater wetlands. We worked in the Philippines in the marine ecosystem and in agrosystem in Ukraine, in Europe, of course. And the first thing in Kenya we did, we selected national task forces. One was working in the Yala Swamp, one in Lake Naivasha, one in Lake Nakuru, and one in Tana River to look at these wetlands. The approach was basically participatory. We talked to the communities to know what they were experiencing in terms of biodiversity loss and the changes that have taken place in the past in their regions. We are able to determine the key questions that the communities wanted to be answered and then look for data that would help us answer those questions. The questions that we determined were basically 4, that we wanted to find out what the resources were, how the resources were being used, the value of these resources, and how we can manage these resources. We ended up with several indicators, and we collected data to be able to analyze these indicators in terms of the changes that have happened in the past. And we were able to use this and develop a sort of a tool that can be used to inform government on policies to develop on biodiversity. I want to mention some of the biodiversity. These are some of the birds we get in Yala Swamp. These are not the only ones, but just a few of them. And this shows you how much the biodiversity we may lose if we continue reclaiming the land. We also had a lot of fish species, which you can see. And some of these species cannot be found anywhere else except in the swamp. One of the species that I want to mention specifically is this one hiding here. As young people in the lake region, every young boy was infected by bilharzia. And this bilharzia was a big challenge that it was very difficult to control it. But this fish you are seeing at the top here eats the snails that harbor bilharzia. And it is not possible nowadays to have bilharzia infections in the region, which was actually some of the very, very critical health issues in this area. Some of these species have even not been described genetically. So some of them have been nicknamed. Like you have one here called fine bass scrapper. This is a different, the same fish. And the one is called thick skin because the way it looks like. So some of these have not been described, and they are not even in the museums. This is just a level of some of the fishes that have been described, and many of them have not been described, but they have been collected in our environment in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. Now, what did we do? We used a framework, several frameworks. We used the Living Planet Index to describe the changes in biodiversity. We also tried the DIPSA framework. We tried the National Capital Index, and of course the JFWCPA frameworks, which were able to tell us the changes that have taken place in the past. We ended up with a tool that could be used to be able to classify the changes that have taken place in terms of species diversity, in terms of abundance, in terms of ecosystem structure, and in terms of water quality. And then we developed a traffic light system of warning to tell us when the environment is really disturbed and when it is safe. Thank you very much for listening to me, and questions are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. We have 4 minutes for questions. Yes.
Hi, it works? Yeah. Thank you very much for the presentation. And it's very important, I think. And I was wondering if you have also some project that is looking also the impact of climate change on the fishery, like with the increasing of the water, because I think now also with the increasing of the water on the lakes or like large water, it have an impact also in the fishery. And so if you have maybe some fishery models or you are also thinking to look at future projection with different scenarios to see also the impact with climate change on that. Thank you.
Yes, I can respond to that. Thank you very much for the question. Indeed, I've been working a lot on the impact of climate change on fisheries and fish production. The classical models that we have can actually not be used to model those changes. So we are turning more and more into AI to be able to model the relationship between environmental variables, lake level, precipitation, discharge, with fish production in different capacities. And we have also been recently been able to do some meta-analysis on the impact of lake level change over the years, maybe 20, 30 years, what has happened in the past. So yes, this is being done. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question? Okay.
Thank you very much. Interesting presentation. I have a question about the Yala, because every one of you guys are presenting about Yala, but why Yala? That's one question that I have. Don't you have other study areas as well, or is it the same trend that you see? And it's quite interesting, in fact, because it's a big swamp. But those people who are investing to restore that area, what do they get in return? Is it just pure passion, or what do they get? And also, how do you, is it like the people are living around there? Is there like agricultural activity around there? And are the people willing also to move away from those? Because usually wetland areas, those areas are really productive. So how are they willing also to move away from those places? Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think what you must consider is that these are rural areas where we have native communities who their livelihood depends on these wetlands. And anything that would interfere with the resources of the wetlands would interfere with their livelihoods. So the main idea is to value the resources, both goods and non-good services getting from the wetlands, and seeing how to improve on what is existing and probably diversify the way they can improve their livelihoods based on the resources they have. After all, the investments that people do here are basically commercial, and the communities might not benefit much. So the idea here is to be able to let the communities use the wetlands and probably enhance some support to them. I can say that this site is being proposed to be a Ramsar site, and the Ramsar sites, have there some investment benefits that help the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Julius, for the presentations and insights on ecological issues. And that was quite insightful. At this time, this is the long-awaited moment, and we have our first tea break. I see people are celebrating. Yeah? So we'll have 10 minutes. Please, not 15, 10, because we want to also be within time. We started a little bit late, but 10 are enough. So we'll just walk out just next to the exit here. We have several tables. You can use 2 tables per person. Yeah? Within 10 minutes, then we come back. Thank you so much, and see you in 10 minutes. Room temperature water. You are welcome back to our next session. This is the last session. It's even a shorter one. And then we'll be guided into the very last one. So at this time, with the same breath, we want to welcome Dr. John. Dr. John Nyongesa is a researcher and a senior lecturer in ecology at JUST. And he holds a PhD in natural science in ecology from the University of Chinese Academy of Sciences, China. But he's a Kenyan, not a Chinese. His expertise is in citizen science, ecological monitoring, remote sensing, climate resilient conservation. And he leads and collaborates on international research projects, including partnerships with UNEP, and then promotes youth engagement and community-led environmental stewardship through water quality and biodiversity conservation. I hereby welcome Dr. John to come and give us his presentation. We are still on Lake Victoria Basin. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. He forgot I'm the one leading the citizen science activities in River Yala, especially in monitoring water quality. Now, we have been doing some work in tracking ecological health of this river. I will be brief in my presentation. When we look at SDGs, especially 6.3, for us to attain them by 2030, we need data to make informed decisions on water quality. And when you look at this global scale, there are several countries that are missing where there is no data. Now, there is a lot of people who if we look at health and livelihood, so many people will be at risk if we can't achieve these SDG targets. Now, to fill this gap, especially in developing countries, it becomes a challenge, especially where there is no skills, or maybe they have not, they don't have the capacity to monitor this water so that we can have clean water, or maybe achieve these targets of having the SDG targets. Now, in terms of our approach, we designed a citizen science approach where we look at stakeholder engagement, those who are directly involved in these activities, as in who are directly affected or indirectly affected by the presence of, come from within this ecosystem, like the River Yala. I'm noticing that the slides that were modified are not the ones that are here, but I will still proceed with using the slides that are presented. Now, citizen science has been there for quite a long period, and it has been used to monitor water quality in most countries. In Africa, this citizen science data has been used to report on data on water quality, especially in Sierra Leone by UNEP and Zambia. And from their data, it indicated that most of the water tested, 80%, did not meet the standards, especially the international standards and also the national standards. Now, in our case study, we looked at River Yala. River Yala is one of the longest rivers in our country. It covers a stretch of slightly above 200 kilometers, rising from the Nandi escarpment down to the Lake Victoria Basin. Now, this river, as we heard from the earlier presenters, supports livelihood, supports biodiversity, and flows through one of the largest freshwater wetland within the Great Lakes of Africa, that is a Yala Swamp. And this river is at risk, as we heard from the earlier presenters. As you can see, we have pollution that is taking place. Again, within the Yala Swamp, we have activities going on, like farming. Then we have also grazing during the dry season. Then we have activities along the river, again within the swamp, which compromise this river ecosystem. Our approach in citizen science was to engage the local high school, and specifically we picked Inlet, that is Barakanyango Secondary School, and then we had Usenge High School as at the discharge point. And these students were trained on monitoring the parameters that are usually recognized by UNEP, and then we used the quality kits. Those are the water quality kits that were acquired, and the parameters were calibrated based on freshwater kits. This was to approach it through now knowledge training of these students in a participatory approach, where we train them on the skills on how to use these kits, how to sample water, and interpretation of data. Then these are the activities that took place. You can see from the photographs there. We have students visiting the river to sample water. Then there is also some training taking place. Again, we also held some focus group discussion around to understand how these students feel about the activities. These are activities that have been ongoing since last year, September, and the students gave us some interesting ideas. Then this is just some graphical presentation of the river and showing us the inlet, and then we have the outlet where we had our schools. We had, these are some of the findings. We picked on specifically on turbidity because turbidity gives us more information when it comes to water quality. And we found that at the inlet, the water was above the national standards based on the NEMA, National Environmental Management Authority. Then at the outlet, we had, it was within, slightly below the NEMA standards. This showed us the power that we have with the swamp. Then again, we also try to look at this stability in terms of seasonal change. We had a short rain because the period just ran from September to April, but the program is still ongoing. So there was also some information about the seasonal change, where we have the high values being recorded during the short rain, again in the long rains. Then again, there was also some, you can notice we have the inlet and outlet values. So this is a very important indicator on the ecological health of this river as it flows through into the swamp, because it's coming from urban settlements, passing through agricultural land. Then we also have other industrial areas where there are so many, there is a lot of activity taking place where sediments come in. The sediments, once the sediments themselves, turbidity itself is not harmful, but what these sediments carry is the one that causes harm. Probably it carries some bacteria, harmful microbes, which may impede penetration of light to this river. Again, this will affect the fauna and flora that inhabit in this river. Again, if we continue polluting the river, then again, this water ends up into the lake. And as we heard from the earlier presenters, we have other negative impacts on the lake, which serves, which is a very important ecosystem for livelihood within the lake basin. Again, when we looked at the focus group discussion, we had interesting findings where the students gave us ideas on what is happening to the activity. It gave them confidence to speak about the activities that are happening within the community, because most of the students we selected come from within the lake, the river, River Basin. So they were able to talk about this whenever they go home, to talk to the community, to talk to their family. Again, it helped them to improve their analytical abilities. We are planning in future to hold, towards the end of this month, to hold a stakeholder engagement workshop where we will involve the community. Again, the students who participated in this will be involved, so that this, the findings will be shared, so that to spread out this information. Again, we plan to expand these activities upstream, so that we identify the hotspots that require conservation. Again, upscaling needs funding, so this is something that is ongoing, looking for funding so that we can improve on our data collection as we try to achieve SDG 6. Thank you. These are the people involved. in this citizen science activity, and this is being financed by like a side project on by VLIR with the help of these individuals, Professor Ann, Professor Dr. Afnan, and myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. John. Are there questions? Thank you.
John, I'm just concerned about your first pictures. Is that really the Yala Basin?
I was also wondering.
This one. This. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. I have to. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. This one, the first one. The first two. We went up to the factory. There is the side where they try to divert. Actually, this river was diverted by the then Dominion farm. It was diverted, and that's why it usually floods during heavy rains. Whenever we have heavy rains, there are usually there's an increase in volumes, which breaks the banks. So there is a section that looks like this. Yeah. Yes, there is a section, but I think it was exaggerated, the first one. Yeah.
But just as he said, it seems these are not the updated slide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think I just want to add a comment that we were asked why it is Yala. And why it is the only swamp that is of concern. I want to state that there are over 79 swamps in this region, and all of them are equally studied. But this one is like a live museum, so it attracts more attention than the other ones. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Maybe one more question, yeah, there at the back.
Okay, thank you very much, John, for your presentation. It is a pleasure to hear you. You said that we don't have data enough in some countries or in some places to try to tackle this kind of issue concerning this 6.3 parameter. So my question is, what kind of data do we need, and what kind of data can citizen science provide? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Leonardo. According to UNEP SDGs, especially 6.3, we need data on these key parameters that have been outlined, and we have pH, temperature, EC, DTS, salinity, nitrate, phosphate. This is the data that is needed. We collected this data. We have analyzed, but I just picked on one because this is not like academia. So this data is needed, but the problem is collecting this data is not so easy, especially when you look at the cost in terms of funding. Then again, it needs training. So engaging the local community, especially those that are directly affected by these ecosystems, especially the rivers, because from the SDG 6, we are looking at the clean water for all, where we look at the fresh water. So this initiative partially fills the gap of data collection. And when you engage the local community, they know, they have lived with this ecosystem for quite some time. They understand, they know the activities, and also it helps to sensitize them on the activities that are driving the quality of water, that are leading to what their health, livelihood, or whatever the water that they are using. Yeah. So this is very, very important. These are specific parameters that are required, the data that is required by SDG to report. And that's what they used in Zambia, partially in Africa, that is in Zambia and Sierra Leone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's appreciate Dr. John for the wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for the insights. Now, we want to, I think this is where he ended good. So we want to welcome Minwa. Anne, can you say Minwa? Yes, good. So Minwa is derived from an international language. There is English, there is French, there is Dutch. But there is one language in the world that is referred to as an international language. This is the Luo language. It is spoken by those who live around Lake Victoria and are from the Kenyan side. They are very special people in the world, not East Africa. And I am one of them, yeah? So Minwa is our mother. It means our mother. That's why she has even pronounced it with ease. Our mother. Minwa is our mother. At this time, we want to welcome our mother, and that is none other than Professor Emily Achieng Akuno. I'll just speak little about her from the slides. She's the Vice Chancellor of JUST, the one heading the university, and also Professor of Music at the Technical University of Kenya. And she holds a PhD in Music Education from Kingston University, United Kisumu. Kisumu is the city, of course, the only city in East Africa, and we usually call it UK. Yeah? I said we are Luos, and we don't want to brag a lot. She has served as the president of the International Music Council, IMC, and the first African woman to hold this position. And she's a specialist in culturally rooted music education and curriculum development. She is an international leader in integrating indigenous music traditions into formal education. Today, we want to listen to the music of Lake Victoria. How many people welcome our visit? Karibu, karibu, karibu.
Have you ever listened to an introduction and looked for the person? And now I have so many things in my hands. So good evening, or is it still afternoon? Let's move. It's a joy to be here, a real serious joy. And I'd just like to acknowledge all the people who are in this room. I worked in a space. I worked with people who, before they start talking, they have to acknowledge which land they stand on. And I want to acknowledge this land on which we are today. You seated, we standing, somebody else standing. And I thank you, Anne, for the invitation. Annika, for looking for me when I could not be found. You managed. Many people are not succeeding that well. But thank you. And the introduction, wow. Asante sana. A couple of, perhaps, what do I call them? Premises, okay? Number one, there's a CCP trialogue that I insist on, that the context determines the content. And that the content technically dictates the processes. And those processes let us know how to handle whatever it is that we're dealing with. This is crucial. The context, content, process, trialogue. And it's a trialogue because they're always interacting with one another. But that motion, context gives you your content. And that content, if you look at it carefully, you'll discover the processes within it. And those processes are the ones that are really going to guide you on how to handle whatever material you're dealing with. The others around cultural expressions, I call them cultural expressions, the arts, the performing arts, the creative arts, whether it is visual or oral or a combination of all of those. They are repositories of information, but they're also modes of disseminating that information. That dual characteristic of the performing arts, of the cultural expressions, is important when you are acknowledging or dealing with indigenous knowledge, especially, but I think all forms of knowledge. And for me, it is performance that links concepts and methods. It is the action, the activity, that will enable you to connect your ideas, your thoughts, your theories, and the methods, the methodologies, the activities. So what's our context? And again, the question of Yala. This is a region that I call a region at crossroads. And this is where we have intelligence that is clearly very artificial, trying to coexist with knowledge that is indigenous. And this is a place, again, where modernity and traditional dichotomy really affects all facets of life. And that includes the relationship that we have with our environment. And I'm sure you realize that my language is very different from the language of those who have come before. We're speaking words that are in English, but I hope you understand, you get that I'm talking very differently from the way others are talking. I talk about our relationship with the environment. Are we exploiting or conserving? Are we using or nurturing? And when you operate within the realms of indigenous knowledge, you cannot do both. It has to be one. The other context is song. What is song? What is music? I'm not going to talk about music. I'm going to talk about song, specifically song. It combines two really unrelated sets of symbols. The first set is music. What is music? Sound. What is sound? There is the combination of pitch, and pitch is really the outcome of the number of oscillations per second, whether it is high pitch or low pitch, okay? Any of those. But sound also has duration. It occupies time in space. No. It occupies space in time. Is it short hum or is it long until I come back? Okay. And that is the thing about music, usually full of emotive meaning. And that's one of the reasons why song is very useful in communicating. It's not just the lyrics that you'll be communicating, but you'll be touching people at an emotional level. Again, the other element of song are the words, the lyrics. These are verbal symbols that have been imbued with meaning by those who use them. So when you have your aesthetics and your hard facts put together and you've got your song, what a formidable equipment do you have for conveying information, for hitting at those you'd like to hit at while still smiling at them, but for doing all kinds of things. And so song becomes a very valuable tool for both documenting and disseminating information. The word documenting I have used deliberately because we document in many different ways. And then we are all here engaging with the term conservation. In my circles, we don't like that word. Why don't we like that word? We prefer preservation. Because when we deal with music and traditions, conservation sounds like fossilization. So it's going to stay that way forever. We prefer preservation because it means propagating, putting it in service while retaining some elements of it. But here I know what we are talking about, so we shall not fight. And I find that it is successful. Conservation, climate conservation will be successful when there is common and or shared knowledge. In this case, what kind of knowledge? Knowledge of what the environment really is. And I emphasize the word really. What really is our environment like? And knowledge of who the players are in conserving or preserving or sustaining this environment. If you don't have that, you're not going to be doing any conservation. Because I might be doing one thing and you think it's the wrong thing. I think somebody mentioned that there are, it's probably Dr. Stella, that there are different methods that are being used in the area and we need to have something in common. And I wonder if we really want to have something in common or if we just want to understand that we are probably all doing the same thing but from different perspectives. I do not know. But sometimes our actions cancel out other people's works. So that is that. Then, again, conservation is the community's responsibility. This is not one wherein you pass the buck. You cannot say, that's not my work. It is all of our responsibility. And therefore, co-laboring is a must. Okay, collaboration is a must. We've got to do this together. Already 5 minutes gone. And it is not a new concept to the Lake region. And this is where sustainable innovation comes in. And it has been there from time immemorial. We must remember that there are traditional ecological knowledge and technology. It is there. So how does it get conserved, preserved? Okay, through participation and through the use of culture bearers. We talked about policy, somebody spoke about policy, and I believe that the policy that is going to be effective needs to be informed, needs to be anchored on the traditional knowledge or the knowledge and the activities that are already in place. Music making being participatory has roles and is not just entertainment, but is edutainment. This ecological knowledge, where is it documented? Or is it documented? It's documented in our songs and our orature, the poems, the riddles. It is all in there. It is also in the crafts and other, let me call them embroideries. And this is where I need sound. This is in Kiswahili. And let's listen a bit. Goodness, my time is gone so fast. Maji, wanijua we.
Wengi wanita bahari mvua mto kama ziwae. Wanijuae. Wengi wanita bahari mvua mto kama ziwae. Wengi wanita maji, maji ni uhai. Mutatizika nami, musema maji meupe, baharini samawati.
Okay, time's gone. So I talked about the culture bearers. These are those who have the indigenous knowledge. And this is where the principles for conservation are going to be derived. And because they exist, they provide continuity. They inform new technology and policies. And therefore, we get to learn from them about the community cultural practices. And in these, we have, for example, work songs. The work songs, when people come as a community to till their ground together, they sing together to make the work easier and lighter. And what are the lyrics of these songs? They talk about the environment. They talk about the actual technology of farming their land. Now, with around the community agricultural practices, who is doing the practice? Who is doing what? We've got a lot of activity around Tana River by the communities. Kilifi, the beach management units, the Friends of Lake Victoria, the Friends of Lake Turkana, all of these are there. What are the challenges that we have? I think the first big challenge is when conservation started, it had a lot of money, didn't it? Probably still does. And where there's money, this becomes a problem, doesn't it? Oh, okay. And then there is this, which sometimes may not be that palatable. What makes the colonial legacy a challenge is the vocabulary. You know, how do you define certain things? Or is what I am doing also acceptable? You know, can what I'm doing also be referred to as conservation? And then there's always the power play, the supremacy battles. And you tie it very closely today to politicization. There's exclusion. That's a problem with colonialism. There's exclusion. Some are in, others are not in. And in the end, there's marginalization. And we are going to get to the nice point where we would then do a bit of song. I finally have a fresh 5 minutes, hallelujah. And so we get to the nice bit. A long time ago, before Mommy knew Daddy's name, lived the hawk and the dove. And they were really good friends, and they each had a set of 10 children. You know the name of the children of the hawk, whatever their name is. And they lived close by, and they would do all their stuff together. And one night, the dove barely slept because there's a lot of from the hawk's home. So in the morning, the hawk Mama Hawk woke up and said, Fuliru, Fuliru. I need some hawks. If you're on this half, let's go. Fuliru, Fuliru. Now into the woods I must go today to fetch my wee babe's food. Fuliru, Fuliru. But lo, what a sight I behold far off. Oh no, a lot of smoke. And lo, can you see the smoke? And then dove says, smoke? What smoke? Is it gray or white? And if you're like dove, you probably cannot see. But being hawk, she could see. And what then does dove say? Coo, 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 coo. Coo, 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 coo. So they had a conversation. Let's go. Fuliru twice. Fuliru. Come on, dove. Coo, 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 coo. And you know, that sight of the smoke was not anything to sing about. But, must tell the farmer he'll soon be tilling. Let's go and see. Coo, 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 coo. Must tell the farmer he'll soon be tilling. Let's go and see. So all the neighbors rushed to the farm, and what did they see? This is the first thing they saw. Was it water that was eroding the banks? Or is it somebody's bathroom? Which of the above? But why is that water that color? And they kept flying because they're going to the forest to do what? To look for food. And dove said, what happened? I thought grass used to be green. You know dove's eyesight, huh? I thought grass used to be green. And the hawk, who can see from very high up because it's got to see the mice to come and eat, said, oh, no, 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 no. It's not grass. The grass has not changed its color. And dove asks, so what is it really? And hawk says, looks like somebody cut some trees upstream. And the rain has now washed the soil into the river. And they said, no, 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 we can't go on like this. We've got to do something like this. Let's have a mkutano. And they went and had this mkutano. And I'm sure there are people you can see. You see this one here? That one was in the mkutano. You see that one there? That one was in the mkutano. But who are these? We've got friends of Lake Victoria. We've got people from Kilifi. We've got people from Lake Turkana. We've got people, Osenela. All of these people, and what were they talking about? They were trying to come up with those solutions to those challenges. So what's the connection between art, nature, and community conservation? Number one, the music, the arts, as a means of creating awareness about nature. That's first. That's a big connection. And then, as a way of engaging community, our music is participatory. That's why I couldn't sing alone. You had to sing with me. It's we all get involved in it. And so you get people to work together. Also, a means of sharing messages on the environment. The indigenous art forms are very useful for this. In 2003, one of my students published a thesis in which she confirmed that it was possible to use indigenous music idioms to pass or to convey innovative messages. So we know that even indigenous music can be used in this. And then the contemporary, for example, contemporary Swahili songs, but there isn't too much time. That was the smoke.
You still have 3 more minutes?
I do.
Because we have music.
And the joy of music is that there's the aesthetics that takes away the sting from the harsh message, if there was any. The musician's role in conservation is very important, and it's not necessarily to do with producing the music. You know, when we make our instruments, several of our instruments need huge, fat, thick trees. And so we've got to be very judicious in our use of the plant resources. But we also must make sure that our music is a learning space for the young and for the old on matters of knowledge about the environment, and our space in making sure that that environment will be there for the next generation, sustainability. And then we must remember that we hold certain powers because we can coach our very tough messages within aesthetics, and therefore we are not too annoying. And I think with that, okay, that one's refused. Conclusion: water, art, and community conservation. This is a possible trio where the artist and the art and the members of the community interact with the environment, and they understand their stewardship role, and together with others engage in activities towards restoring, sustaining, and or revitalizing water sources. I thank you. Oh.
Thank you.
I think I've eaten up all the time, so there'll probably be no question.
Yeah, there are no question. There are no question for music. Thank you so much, Professor Emily, for that. Let's appreciate her. And now things are tightening up. After such powerful presentation, of course, from a professor of music, then we want to bring you the best and East African artist. How many are ready? Here comes Camille Wekesa. Camille Wekesa is a founder of Okedi Arts, Nature and Education Foundation, trained in Italy, but do we say, in Renaissance painting techniques with a focus on art history and museology. Creates large-scale murals and landscapes paintings that highlights Kenya's natural beauty and biodiversity. Through Okedi, the foundation, they conduct community art programs and artist residencies promoting environmental conservation and cultural heritage. All the way from Kenya, here she is to take the microphone, and let's enjoy the moment.
How does it work?
everybody. I decided to call the talk today African Creative Spark, Cultural and Spiritual Community Conservation. I'm an artist and I work with professional artists to try to bring community conservation to the community where I live, which is actually in Mount Kenya, which is in central Kenya. I've been very privileged to be invited by Annika Schlemm as part of her PhD to do these art workshops in Yala Basin and Kakamega Forest. I'd done a series of paintings on Kakamega Forest in 2014. So I was very interested in coming to run these art community workshops. I believe that African communities have always held indigenous beliefs about the environment. I've been traveling around Kenya painting different sites around the country, talking to different people and began to understand that people actually incorporate their indigenous beliefs in their creativity, in their lives, and I wanted to try to pick that up in my work as I began documenting landscapes. I just want to look at number one, East African women artists who lead conservation. I run another CBO in Mount Kenya where we run community reforestation along the Ontulili River. And we've been incorporating children and elders into the community art classes through the community art program, through the community reforestation program along the Ontulili River. We've been able to link a Guardian program. We've been able to link a Guardian's Ranger program to revitalize reforestation along the Ontulili River. So I wanted to create this intersection of art and science and environment and blend science, storytelling, and art in a rural community already rich in nature. I've been looking at the great tradition of landscape painting because as I traveled around Kenya documenting landscapes, I'd been away in Italy, I'd been studying the history of art, and which included the history of African art, and noticed when I returned from Kenya, there was a lack of documentation of landscape paintings. There were a lot of artists who were doing, who were working in capital cities, so doing a lot of portrait art and figurative art. So very few artists who are actually working, documenting landscapes. So I've been trying in the last 10 years since I've been in Nanyuki, trying to bring more artists into the conservation narrative to document, and when I say document, I mean paint, because we have a lack of paintings of what Kenya looks like as a landscape and how it is changing. And I'm grateful for all the people that I came across in the conservation world as I traveled around Kenya, because they gave me the permission to believe that I too, as an artist, could be integrated into the conservation narrative, and I could be part of the solution of nature-based solutions. By tapping into a growing tool of professional African artists, I run an artist in residence program, and I'm beginning to see there are a lot of rising African artists. There's a lot of them beginning to travel through international residencies, and I think we can begin to tap in to them. I run about 8 residencies a year in Nanyuki, and we bring East African artists for now. I hope that it's going to expand to international artists as we go forward. But it's about bringing professional artists who paint, who do photography, who do sculpture, all different types of modern art making, and bring them into the local community to try to integrate modern art making with traditional art making. So trying to get children involved in art, and we guide them. We always start with a little nature walk. We collect recycled materials, and then we come together as a community and try to create an art form. And we try to link in this indigenous beliefs about nature and the environment, by sort of linking in materials that we found along the way. So the children are making this link and connecting indigenous materials and incorporating them into the art form. African artists, we can continue to draw upon other creative experiences. There's a very well-known global artist, Kenyan artist, called Magdalene Odundo, who has elevated pottery, a simple pottery, which was always known as poor man's art and craft making, into a very rich art form. She's globally recognized today. And I think as Africans, we're uniquely placed in the cradle of mankind, where we can begin to find our own singular environmental contribution to issues related to nature as we continue to add to global art history. I talk about art history because we have a very small documentation, archival documentation of what is happening on the continent in terms of African artists, what they're doing, their processes, and I think it's very important that we bring in more artists and more writers and scientists and try to link and build our art history narrative. As an artist, I experiment a lot, and I always ask myself, and as artists, we ask ourselves, how can we be part of global art history? How can we look further afield and try to learn from others? I studied, as I was introduced, I studied art in Italy, and I was learning African art history as well as Western art history. And from my Western landscape painting, it was very powerful in terms of technique and perspective and using science and storytelling. I've also studied the great tradition of Chinese landscape painting, and it has become one of the greatest contributors of Chinese culture today. So I'm always looking at around the globe to see who are the people leading in terms of documenting nature and landscapes, and then trying to incorporate that with the artists that I'm working with. So learning from others, as we experiment and question where we fit in, we should not be afraid to learn on the continent or further afield. One of the areas that interested me was the American Hudson River painters, who I understand from the mid-19th century, they actually sparked the modern conservation movement. There was two artists in particular who were heavily involved in creating the Forever Wild Act. So they were working with administrative powers to try to raise awareness about creating sustainability and a more balanced approach to industrial development, tourism, income generation, and job creation, which are all essential to modern day living, particularly relevant to fast-growing African populations and economies. So we can look to people further afield who are working in the same way, artists who are working overseas. And we as artists, I think, can begin also to advocate. I do work very closely also with the Kenya Forest Service, the Kenya Wildlife Service, different Warua's water groups in Nanyuki, because as we bring the community together to do the art workshops, it's actually a natural flow that we would work together, because we're also trying to advocate for a better environment and trying to do that through the art and through the children and the elders in the community. So it's very important that we also learn to work with government. So as artists, I always believe that we recognize the sacred qualities of nature. And these workshops in Western Kenya, it was really a privilege because it was a learning base for both us as teachers and also the indigenous community that was there. We were able to incorporate small children from about the age of 5 or 6 all the way up to elders in the community. So really coming together to create artworks, and it's really an opportunity and an entry point for communities to be engaged in nature-based solutions through the use of art and creativity. It's a language that I think in particular children understand. When they do art, they are able to make the link between recycling and collecting materials and producing artworks that have this nature theme. I think it becomes ingrained very naturally when children are brought into the discussions very early, and we do it in a way that's fun and productive, and they enjoy that. I'm very interested also in tapping into indigenous knowledge. We have so many points that we can sort of jump off from. If we look at Kenya in particular, I live in the Mount Kenya area, and we know that the Kikuyu tribe considers the fig tree sacred. They always build their houses facing Mount Kenya, which is in reverence to Ngai, or God, as they call. And we know also that prayers and rituals take place in the Mijikenda sacred forests of the coastal region and in West Africa as well. So there's lots of cultural indigenous beliefs that we can incorporate in art by bringing in particularly elders in the community who can tap into some of that existing knowledge, and we can come together with scientists and conservationists and preservationists and try to bring those connections into the art classes that we're doing. These are just a few examples of entry points to working with communities to restore and protect nature, and by doing so keep African culture alive. These beliefs are held by communities across Africa, and I think as we modernize as a society, I think it's still important that we use those cultural beliefs. It's a way of bringing them forward into our artwork and keeping them alive. I think that's very important. As much as we want to modernize and move towards technology, I think keeping culture alive, it's a way to do that by tapping into existing knowledge about nature in Africa. There's so many people that I want to also just recognize, because I work with others in Nanyuki and further afield. We bring workshops, theater, writing and drama together, again with these pre-existing cultural beliefs which link with modern scientific data. We know also that in Africa we've tended to transmit information orally. So again, it's why we're very interested as the artists running the community workshops that we also begin to create this archival tradition of writing and documenting our work. So documenting work, nature-based work as painters, but also documenting the processes and having writers work alongside us as we document the artist process, their backgrounds, how they work, why they got into their work. It's a very important part of the work that we do. It's not just painting. So we've seen, and I'm sure most the speakers in the room would agree with me, that it's very important to have participatory conservation. We've seen on the ground in Nanyuki, when we involve community, we have a much better chance at success, because people feel part, they're custodians, they live there, they feel part of the participatory process. And we've seen that when we don't recognize these communities, they end up feeling marginalized, and it becomes completely unsustainable in the long term. So it's very important to begin slowly, and by that I also mean working with government, with the Kenya Forest Service, with the Waruas on the ground, and just making it's a community spirit, and as Africans we tend to work as a community, so everybody finding the solution together. Again, I work, and very important to keep the artists working with young generation. We tend to work with children who between the ages of 8 and 18, but the community art classes are actually open to everybody in the community. But we're very focused on the next generation, because if we can instill some of those messages about environment and nature, then I think we have a much better chance of finding long-term solutions for the problems that we find with nature, with climate, with deforestation, and yeah. In conclusion, I want to thank the University of Brussels, Anika. I was very fortunate to be part of this workshops in Yala Basin and Kakamega Forest. And I look forward, and I hope that this is the beginning, not the end, of working together as artists, scientists, and conservationists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Camilla. I think because of time, I think we can move without a question, unless there is only one burning question. They are there, but they are not burning things. Now, thank you so much and for bringing art into environmental issues. Now, I want to let you know that for the discussion that has been here since we started, sorry. For the discussion that has been there since we started, we want to highly appreciate Annika for bringing all this thought together. Annika, may you just rise up and come up front here. This is a powerful lady. This lady has traveled across all the continents, I think, for this PhD. And at times we joke in the department that no one travels in that department like who? Like Annika. She travels more than the department chair, that is Professor Anne. And she has really put a lot of energy. The very first time she came to Kenya, I think I saw someone come to my office, and I was the first stakeholder, I think. She came to get data and engage some stakeholders in the basin. And actually, I didn't know I would even come here. So I'm glad that she has done all this and brought up different aspects. I want to give her time that you may listen to her voice. Is that okay? And she takes us through the last bit of our presentation now. Welcome, Annika. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Vincent. As mentioned, I've known Vincent, I guess, for a couple of years now, because indeed he was my stakeholder, where we were discussing some of these challenges back when he was working for the LBDA, the Lake Basin Development Authority, and now is a postdoc in our department. So it's wonderful to see both how large and how small the world is, and how very much connected everybody is, especially in this room today. I won't keep you for too long because we have a documentary to premiere. But I will say a few times throughout this that everything you see here, both in terms of the research components, the art components, and the film components, is not possible without a large collection of people working together in participation, in collaboration. So every person who's sitting in this room has played some kind of a role in making all of this possible. It's unfair for one person to have the microphone because it is not one person who makes this possible. It is a large collection. It's communities, it's government, it's NGOs, it's academia working together. So please do not let this fool you into thinking it's one person. It is many, many, many people. So without further ado, we now have a moment to premiere the documentary that we made during some of the field work that we have been discussing. So I wanted to share just a couple of behind-the-scenes photos and a couple of fun, quick numbers before we begin, so you know what happens behind the scenes, behind the camera. So we had 2 boat rides, both on the long boats and also the very big boats, which you will see. We had 1 stuck van, and that took also an entire community to get this van out of the ditch. So again, showing the importance of collaboration, participation in every part of the process. We had 33 interviews across 2 different countries. Unfortunately, because of time, we could not share every component of the interview in the film, as it's just half an hour long. But we wanted to try and have a broad representation of many different voices across the basin, from community members to government officials. We had 51 hours of footage. That includes the B-rolls too. So that's both the 33 interviews and also all the B-rolls that then support the beautiful visuals you will be seeing soon. We had 2 professional videographers and 3 amateur drone pilots, myself included, and also Sebastian sitting here. And so I think it kind of goes far to show how it's mainly these 2 professional videographers who captured a lot of footage and put in a lot of hard work. And we had 5 languages spoken or sung during this process. As you will hear, we also captured some of Emily's elements of song and music throughout this process. It is not just speaking. And just wanted to show you the 2 wonderful people, Andrew Mugambi and Veronica Wachira, our 2 cinematographers who made this possible. They worked incredibly hard. They traveled very far with us. both from early mornings until late in the evening. And also sitting with us here, Maria from our department was also a very key player in bringing all of this together and making those 33 interviews possible. So please think about these faces who are all behind the camera, making it possible as we are watching the film now. And then after the film, I'll give a quick introduction to the exhibition, which will take place afterwards. But first of all, please, we will now go on to... Thank you very, very much for your support, providing a listening ear. I hope this has captured some of the very interconnected challenges and solutions that this very, very great lake faces. And I hope you also recognize the familiar faces, some of which are also in this room, even if they did not present today. Which leads me to the final part of this quite multifaceted project, which is today's exhibition opening. And so that will also be a chance to speak more to any of the presenters from today, which also includes those who led the art workshops, such as Camille, and those who are also present supporting some of the research components, such as Pamela, Stella, and John. And so I think you've probably captured some of these ideas, that these artworks that we will be seeing today, they were co-created with our professional artists from Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, alongside the community members in the Yala Basin in Kenya. And the works here, they were the ones we see, were the ones that were lent with permission, and they will also be returned back to the creators, the communities. So this is just a short-term, very kind gesture from the creators themselves that we can see it here. So that is an honor in itself that we are able to experience that outside of the place where it's created, but it will be returning. And you'll see the artworks and also the photographs of the processes, the nature around these contexts, and the different hands that shaped what we see today. So it will be upstairs in the exhibition space. We can lead the way. As mentioned previously, there will be free drink and food, so you can refuel yourself. Please do not hold back. It's open today until 8 o'clock, and it will also be open for the next week. So if you want to come back for more time, you're also welcome to, or you can also spread the word to any other friends or colleagues here who can come and visit. I just wanted to take a quick moment. I could talk for another many hours of all the people who shaped this process. But I just wanted to highlight some very key individuals who made this possible of what we will be experiencing today. First of all, we have the professional artist Camille Wekesa, who's already spoken today. Sarah Nakisanze and Liberata Alibalio from Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. They all offered their energy, their enthusiasm, their experiences, their materials too, and provided a space for open dialogue and creative expression when it comes to themes of nature, conservation, traditional knowledge, and so forth. So when you see these works, remember who has made this possible. But that goes without saying that it's not just the professional artists who makes it possible. It is also, of course, the communities who they worked with. It was a collaborative process, a participatory process, which I'm sure you can also speak more to Camille about, should you wish to. So we want to especially thank the Alego community, which was by the Yalo Swamp, and the Eloro community, which was by the Kakamega Forest. Here are some of the behind-the-scenes photos. Some are also upstairs. But in our first workshop, both workshops were meant to be for 30 people. The first workshop we ended up with, I think, around 90 people, including a lot of very energetic children who were running around with paint on their hands, which you can see in some of these photos here. And I would also like to highlight that the works you see were all created in less than a day. And so the process of creating them both included the discussion of what does everybody want to express with their artworks? How will we express it with our artworks? And then also creating the artworks. So we had some processes, for example, here where Nakisanza Sera, she is a fashion designer and textile artist, And so not only, again, do they have the discussions of what they want to express, they actually created wearable garbs and shields that you'll see upstairs. And these were made in the matter of hours. So it's really quite incredible how much energy and thought has gone into these pieces. You also see some of the cyanotypes developed by Liberata Aleballo, which also included a nature walk and bird watching prior to the artworks, where discussions on traditional ecological knowledge and information was exchanged. They collected different leaves with different values and also medicinal values, and then made sun prints of these. And we also had Camille's workshops, which were a lot of painting workshops, again with very enthusiastic children too, and large mural works, one of which you'll see upstairs, painted gourds, which are also upstairs. And there are various pieces that sadly are not here, but we can still capture in feeling and photographs, which were some sculptural pieces crafted from grasses and twigs and chicken wire and charcoal. So I won't hold you any longer, but please, as you are seeing this, think of the people who made it possible. Think of the people who provided their trust, their time, their energy, their creativity. Because yes, remember all the faces who make these things possible. And please do also speak to any of the people who are part of this process if you would like to learn more. So with that, I would like to say a big thank you to everybody here for providing your energy, your patience, and sharing this time with us too. And I hope you now have some energy to enjoy the artworks for at least a little bit of time and enjoy, the free drinks and food too. And if you'd like to learn more about this project, you can also scan this QR code and you can, again, come speak to any of us too. Thank you so much for your time.